there, Jody here, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to go over every book that I read last year in 2024. Yes, I am super late with this video. So as far as how I'll go about going over the books that I read, I'm literally just going to say what book I read, who wrote the book, and my star rating for the book, because I have reviewed as well as have made reading wrap-ups for every book that I read in 2024 on my channel already. So after I go over all the books that I read last year, I'm going to give away a few book awards. Though seeing as I am a bit late with this video, I'm not going to give away too many awards. I'm just going to give an award for my favorite book cover of the year, as well as my favorite book of the year. So without any further ado, let's get on to today's video. So in 2024, I read a total of 22 books, which is definitely an improvement for me for how many books I read in a year, seeing as in 2023, I only read a total of 7 books. So now for what books I read. In January, I read one book, No Exit by Terrell Adams. My star rating for this book was 4.75 stars. In February, I read Something from Tiffany's by Melissa Hill. My star rating for this book was 5 stars. And in March and April, I didn't finish reading anything, and I'll explain what I mean when I say it like that when I move on now to May. So in May, I read a total of 2 books. The first book was Apples Never Fall by Liane, and I honestly cannot remember if I started reading this in March or April, but whatever the case may be, I finished reading this book in May, and so that's why I'm counting it as a book that I read in May. And my star rating for this book was 5 stars. The next book that I read in May was Windfall by Jennifer E. Smith, and my star rating for this book was 3.5 stars. So now moving on to June. In June, I read 3 books. And the first book was A Stranger in the House by Lapena. My star rating for this book was 4 stars. And the next book I read was Run Baby Run by Melissa Leinhart. My star rating for this book was 4.25 stars. And the last book that I read in June was Just One Look by Lindsay. And my star rating for this book was 5 stars. In July, I read 3 books also, and the first book was Flying Solo by Holmes. My star rating for this book was 5 stars. The next book that I read was The Girls by Cline. And when I initially reviewed this book on my channel, I did give this book 5 stars, but I have since changed my star rating for this book to this is more than a 5-star book for me. And then the last book I read in July was The Island by Natasha Preston, and my star rating for this book was 5 stars. In August, I once again read a total of 3 books. The first book was The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. And like with The Girls, when I initially reviewed this book on my channel, I gave this book 5 stars, but I've since changed my star rating for The 7-Year Slip to this is more than a 5-star book for me. The next book that I read was The Last Flight by Julie Clark. My star rating for this book was 4.75 stars. And the last book that I read in August was The X Talk by Rachel and Solomon, and my star rating for this book was 5 stars. In September, I read 2 books. The first book was Strangers on a Train by Patricia. My star rating for this book was 4.95 stars. And the last book that I read in September was When in Rome by Sarah Adams, and my star rating for this book was 5 stars. In October, I read 2 books. The first book was Trust by Hernan Diaz. My star rating for this book was 4.5 stars. And the last book I read was Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams, and my star rating for this book was that this was more than a 5-star book for me. In November, I read 3 books. The first book was The Death of Vivek OJ by Akwaeke Emezi. My star rating for this book was 5 stars. The next book that I read was The Reunion by Kayla Olson. My star rating for this book was 5 stars. And the last book I read in November was The Lions of Fifth Avenue by Fiona, and my star rating for this book was 5 stars. And in December, I read 2 books. The first book I read was Snowblind by Christopher Golden. My star rating for this book was 5 stars. And the last book that I not only read in December 2024, but also like 2024 in general, was Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi, and my star rating for this book was 5 stars. So those are all the books that I read in 2024. And, now on to the book awards. So I'm going to give away 2 awards, like I said. And now, my favorite cover of the year book award. And the award goes to The Reunion by Kayla Olson. And now for the last book award of today's video. That would be for my favorite book of 2024. And the award goes to The Girls by Cline. So yeah, that's going to be it for today. If you're curious more on what the books I talked about here today are about, or my thoughts on them in a more in-depth way, be sure to check out my playlist, Books I Read in 2024, where you can find all of my spoiler-free reviews, as well as all my reading wrap-ups for every book that I read in 2024. So like I said, that's going to be it for today. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope to help you discover a new book today along the way as well. And until next time, bye.